What's up, everyone? Welcome to GameFace episode 23, right here on Sifted Games. I'm Shane Satterfield, and this is Matt Kyle.
It is.
And we are here to take you through another awesome week in video games. Big announcements today. We're supposed to be big announcements from Apple today. Whole lot of build-up to a whole lot of nothing, really, is what it amounted to.
I mean, it's nice to see Apple even mention games after so many, for years they were like, no games, no games, no games.
Yeah, they kind of shunned it for a long time, even despite all the rumors. I mean, there's been rumors swirling about them making a console for a long, long time now.
Oh, yeah, I remember we made a skit about that.
That's right.
Back in the old G4 days.
That's
the
right.
iBox.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
No wires. It doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah. And so we've actually kind of got a console from Apple. It's
sort of like a TV set top.
I mean, it's a micro console.
Sort of thing, yeah.
Micro console. It looks like it's going to play mostly indie and like iOS games for the most part.
I mean, it's basically the new Apple TV is basically it's a high-end app store on a TV,
pretty much,
with a fancy remote.
Yep.
And it's cool. I don't know.
Waggle remote, by the way.
Remote,
yeah, there's Waggle in there.
The Harmonix game looked cool. Beat Sports.
Yep.
Looked fun.
Yeah, it's like Wii Sports played to music.
Yeah.
It's like a music and rhythm game that you play sports to.
Yeah, you like basically
you're hitting a baseball
to the beat of the 1812 overture.
Yeah.
Which is, I dig it.
Yeah,
Harmonix does good. Harmonix.
Typically, they do good stuff. Yeah.
It's good for a party game. So yeah, but I got will I buy it? I don't know.
Then they get the new huge iPad.
Yes, the MegaPad,
which reportedly has a console quality graphics card in it.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that's possible when it's like that.
But I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't either really.
Is that thing going to get really hot?
Because
like,
are they talking about
pretty damn hot?
Are they talking about like the N64?
Yeah, console could mean a lot of things.
It could, yeah.
It could mean the console of your car.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, obviously that's like targeting kind of the tablet sort of artist types,
right?
Because Steve Jobs said back in the day, if there's a stylus, we've failed.
And now there's a stylus.
Now there's a stylus, $100 stylus.
Yeah.
So everybody knows that you're cool with the official Apple $100 stylus.
Right. Well, it is crazy though. It's got like these little like nanomachines in like the tip of it.
Like, so like it knows like when and other styles have done it where like it knows when you're drawing with it.
Yeah.
And it differentiates between the touch of the stylus and the touch of your hand. So if you put your hand on it to steady it, like it doesn't register your hand as like a big handprint.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll do cool stuff. But as far as for our purposes and for the purposes of people watching GameFace, not a whole lot to talk about really.
Not yet. I mean, the Warhammer game looks good. Do we care? I don't know yet.
I mean, that's probably a good question to just ask in general right now. Do you care about Apple TV?
No.
Me either.
Because
you don't care at all.
The whole time I kept watching it, I was like thinking like, well, this is cool. Like all that stuff they're doing is cool, but like they're sort of glossing over the fact like, oh, look at this. Oh, it recommended this cartoon or recommended this TV show or like this movie, and it's like, well, yeah, but you have to buy all those things, It's not like Netflix where you can just like see everything. It's like, and even like when they pull it up, it'll be like already purchased. It was like, yeah, because you got to buy all that.
Yeah, there's no service like a Netflix on there.
Yeah, it's just a fancy store.
Yeah.
And then they showed that guilt thing, which was like, really? You're showing like the store for like the 1% shoppers to like buy like a $800 sport coat as like your big 5-minute demo for the people?
Yeah.
Like that's not really the most populist angle to take on this thing if you're trying to revolutionise television.
Yeah, which I think that's probably a bit of a far-reaching claim at this point based upon what we've seen.
Well, it's kind of like, one time they said they were going to revolutionise how phones work. And they were right.
They were right, yeah.
And so at this point, it's like, just keep saying it until it happens again.
Yeah. All right, so that's pretty much Apple. We just wanted to talk about that briefly before we kicked off the show proper. Also want to mention that we have chosen the winner of our Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain user blog competition. Beelzebub, I believe his name was.
Yep.
Did an amazing job. So if you're watching this, Beelzebub, excellent work, my friend.
Well done, Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, he did a really good job on his blog. You guys should make sure you read it. It is the top story on the homepage right now. So congratulations. He's already got his code. I'm assuming he's already playing away. Be interesting to see if he has the same impressions of Metal Gear as we do.
Yeah,
so
fitting. I mean, Beelzebub could probably be the code name for someone in a Metal Gear game. So
yeah, you're probably right. All right, it's time to get to the meat of the show. Let's get to the Big Six. All right, Matt, so something's been brewing between
Long time coming.
Marty O'Donnell and Bungie for a long time. And so basically what happened was finally the whole thing was settled. Marty O'Donnell won his court case against Bungie over a lot of nefarious stuff that happened with Destiny. And, you know, now that these court documents are out there, it is kind of a scathing indictment of what's going on over there, because one of the things that really bothered me was, if you really dig into those documents, there's a story that's told where Activision basically butted in at one point and said they were working on a trailer for Destiny. I think it may be the debut trailer, the first trailer.
Yeah.
And Marty's music, which he had already made all the music for. Apparently, he's already made all the music for like all the Destiny games,
they,
ever.
Front-loaded all his music for that, which is like seems like it would be very hard to do that.
One, two, it seems like it was a total setup.
Oh yeah,
like they were already planning on trying to get rid of him, and they were like, "Oh, well, why don't you just make all the music for the next 3 Destiny games at once?
Yeah,
so we can get your ass out of here, and we'll still have all the great music that we need." So. Anyway, back to that story. So they were getting ready to release the debut trailer for Destiny. His music was the bed for the trailer, and out of nowhere, Activision comes in and says, no. This is the music that you're going to use for the trailer for this. And I guess Marty raised a stink about it and was like, they're messing with our artistic integrity and blah, blah, blah. I guess basically what happened was everybody else at Bungie sold out to Activision. That, if I really to sum everything up in that court case, is that everyone at Bungie sold out to Activision because they knew Activision was the mothership, and that's where their raises and their bonuses and everything was going to come from. And Marty was the one guy who was like, no. Like, we started this company with like 7 people, and these were the ideals that we started the company with, and, you know, I'm not going to go back on those. Well, everybody else was like, well, I will.
Yeah. Which is amazing, because it's amazing that that Activision would do that to that trailer, and Marty would be the only one with the problem with
That's
it.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's really an indictment on what has happened to that studio since it was first founded. And so Marty really looks like the good guy in all of this. I mean, there were some reports that, you know, he had kind of become a malcontent and blah, 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 which is kind of understandable. If you were like a founder of a company and you're watching the culture change at this company from what you envisioned it to be, to become this other monster altogether. And so,
and like, what do you... It's like, I think it makes perfect sense that he would be reacting that. You know, I know there was like reports in there about how like the audio team was saying he wasn't invested in the job and he was stopping them from doing their work or whatever. Yeah. Well, there's no specifics on that. It sounds a little vague.
Well, no, I mean, that's what I was saying, the malcontent part. Like, you could... Apparently, he had just got fed up and was like
how do you, like, if you're Activision, why do you do that with the music replay?
Because like, you think you know best.
You think you know best.
You have the power to do it.
But at the same time, it's like, you know, Marty, you know, he's one of the original 7 Bungie guys, which is why 7 pops, one of the reasons 7 pops up in Bungie games all the time, because there were 7 of them.
Yeah. Well, the original name of the company was called 7 something, I believe.
And like, he, you know, he's one of the remaining founders. He's done the music. I mean, Marty's music is the reason Halo like broke out to some degree.
I think, like, there's certainly some credence to that.
Certainly, it was a lasting thing because the LAN parties and the gameplay really worked. But like the fact that you booted up this game and it had that beautiful kind of ethereal, you know, serious music to it that kind of gave it that mythic feel. And like, whereas every other first-person shooter at the time was just that kind of like that brainless butt rock at the title screen.
Look at it this way: every time I think about Halo, in my mind, I hear the music while I'm seeing the game playing in my mind. Yep. And I can't think of another game that's like that. Whenever I think about it, I hear the music in my head while I think about it. I mean, that just shows you...
The original Mario Brothers.
Yeah, I guess, or Donkey Kong,
World 1-1, I think, you know, like...
I think of Donkey Kong. Like,
right, but in terms of like the modern game, I think you know, that has got to be the most iconic soundtrack of that era.
Yeah, and
like it's in your best interest, even if you're Activision and you know better, it's got to be in your best interest to keep that guy happy.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Like, just let him have his music. It's like, has Marty O'Donnell's music sunk a video game? No.
Has it ever been a detriment to the success of a Bungie video game? No, it has never been a bad thing.
So why wouldn't you want, at the very least, if I'm making that decision, I'm like, well, what if we play this and everyone who loved Halo and is waiting for Bungie's next game is like, where the fuck is the Marty O'Donnell music?
Yeah.
You know, like, because I certainly said that.
Well, I think the one thing he was worried about was that people would think the music that was in that trailer was his music.
Right.
And so he went on Twitter and was like, hey, this isn't my music that they're using. And then it got really dirty where they thought he was going to try to sell the whole soundtrack to Destiny, and part of the settlement was he had to give them back a CD. Like, he couldn't have burned like 50 other CDs. Like, it just got really petty. And what shocks me the most is that Activision's lawyers and even just the people that sort of rounded this whole thing up at Activision didn't have the foresight to realize all this was going to come out.
Yeah.
There's a thing called the Freedom of Information Act, and like when you do something like this, all the details are coming. And then the crazy part too is that like all this other stuff has been leaked.
Yeah,
like
a lot of interesting stuff about Destiny.
Oh yeah, like it was supposed that Destiny 2 was supposed to be out by now. They completely reworked the story at the last minute. There was like 4 other Bungie games that were like unveiled in like the court documents. Like holy cow, man!
Yeah, and
like,
the whole timeline of when they originally signed the contract, it was like a totally different idea, and
all because Bungie wanted to take like his stocks away from him. He was a company founder.
Yeah.
How could you even think that that's right? Like they just got so greedy over this whole
or
thing.
that it was going to work.
Yeah, it's insane. Like I just can't believe Activision acted that way. Like not even just because I thought they were better than that. Like no, I don't look at it that way.
I thought they were smarter than that.
Stupidity. Yeah, it's just unreal, man. I cannot believe how they shook out.
Especially after the Infinity Ward stuff. It's like there's one thing you should have learned is like don't screw with your devs.
Yeah,
like,
don't screw with the people who have actually created the IP. Yeah. Because when you go to court, the judge is going to side in the favor of the person who created this thing that you're making all your money off of. So, man, they're learning some hard lessons again. Like, I just can't even believe that it all shook out this way.
And it's just like, if you've ever met Marty O'Donnell, I met him a couple times, and it's just like, just talking to him, it's like, don't fuck with this guy.
Yeah,
like, he is about who he is and what he gets and what he wants, and he's like, he's no nonsense about that shit.
I will say one thing about that guy is that he's one of those people that was not what I expected him to be when I met him. Mm-hmm. Like having just listened to his music and, and like read interviews with him, like I thought he'd be this like really mellow, like kind of chilled out dude.
Oh no,
man!
He wants to have a beer and argue with you about politics.
He does.
He's a fun guy to hang out with at these events.
I don't even know if I would call him fun, man. Like,
I enjoyed it.
I honestly, in the time I spent with him, I could actually see where he might rub some people the wrong way, and where over time, if you had to work with him, like you maybe get to a place where you're like, yeah, you know what, I wouldn't mind if there was another composer working here, but that's not how you go about doing things like that. True. It's how they went about it. So,
but it's also like, I don't care how annoying someone is if they're a genius. And you need him for that
Let
creative work.
Let him work from home.
Yeah,
dude, you're just making music. Let him sit at home in his studio and make it there.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we're both in agreement though that we're glad that Marty won his case.
Yes, absolutely.
Deservedly so, and we're also glad that hopefully Activision is learning a hard lesson about how to deal with one of its studios and its creatives who actually create the IP that they're making literally boatloads of money on. Although you think they would have learned that with Call of Duty. So.
What are you going to do?
Marty just started his own studio. No harm, no foul. He got all his stock back.
Highwire?
He's a very rich man again. So
well, good, because
he deserves it.
I've been a Bungie fan since the old Mac days when Marathon 1 and all that stuff, and I still remember booting up the demo of Marathon 2 after downloading it all night because 50 megs was a lot on the 33K modem.
Yeah.
And that music starts, that kind of like marathon thing starts up, and I'm just like, this is awesome, like this is great, and all his music has really defined in the Myth games and how he that made those games just RTSs there was never a despairing real-time strategy game before then, but like with Myth and his music, it really felt like, oh my god, like we're gonna lose this war. Like there's no even if I win every level, we're gonna die. Like there's no, and it was just like this different feeling, and it really, really worked. It was he's such a good composer, and he really nails the feel of the game before you even start playing. So I'm really glad he came out on top on that.
Yep, agreed. So our next topic, I think, is maybe a little more positive than what we just talked about. So in this day and age of here comes a game announced. Everything's been preceded to the press. The trailer's ready to go. They push the button right after the stage show's done. And they have somebody on their social media channels tweeting out screenshots and somebody like retweeting and all this that goes into announcing new games these days, Matt. Finally, we have an instance where somebody just straight up kicked it old school and just told a journalist about a game. And that game is Pikmin 4. Eurogamer apparently was told that the game was almost finished like months ago. Eurogamer sat on this news for months waiting for Nintendo to give kind of the go-ahead to report it or whatever, which I don't know about how
That's
I
a
feel
whole
about
different
that.
story,
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
whole other story we could talk about. But so now they got the okay. They have now announced that Pikmin 4 is not only just in development, but basically finished. The game was started on the minute Pikmin 3 was shipped, according to Miyamoto. And so, one, how do you feel about this, Matt? I mean, do you like Pikmin?
Yeah, I like Pikmin. When I was up for that wedding a few weekends ago, the Motel 6 we were in was in a mini mall with a GameStop in Ukiah, California, and we went across and looked, and they had a used copy of Pikmin for $50.
The first Pikmin.
Pikmin 3.
Pikmin 3.
Because it's out of print.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? I might not see this again, even though I don't have a Wii U yet. So I bought it.
That was a good idea.
And I'm like, because I know I want to play. I like Pikmin. Like, something about that game and the cleanness of it, really, I enjoy it, and it really makes... I mean, I get neurotic about it because I feel really bad when my Pikmin die, because I get attached to them.
That series stresses me out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's the juxtaposition of it all is that it's also very relaxing, like in this odd kind of like nurturing way.
Yeah.
Like there were times though, like when I review that game, like while I would be at work during the day, and I'd be thinking about playing Pikmin 3 at night, I'd almost dread it. I'd have this weird, like, subconscious thing where I'm like, I really don't want to go home and play it. But then as soon as I'd sit down and be like, well, I have to, it's my job, 2 minutes into it, I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, I'm not even thinking about, like, but it's so weird. It's like how that level of stress that it creates in you almost deters you from wanting to play it at times. So... We're both in agreement we like Pikmin.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I really like them. I've played all of them. I've played pretty much all of them in one sitting, or in a couple sittings. Like, I tend to blast through them because I get really addicted to them and get into them. Here's the thing, though, Matt. So Pikmin 3, at this point, has only sold just less than 1 million copies worldwide.
How much did the others sell? The others sold more than
They
that?
sold a little more. The first Pikmin sold 2 or 3 million, and then the second one sold about half of that, and the third one sold a little less than the second. So it's not an upward trajectory for the franchise. Is this smart of Nintendo to have dedicated? Because look,
probably not.
It was. Look,
but I like it. So it's like, it's one of those things where like, oh, that was bad, but I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I also think it's been pretty clear from the beginning that the Pikmin thing is one of Miyamoto's pet.
Sure, yeah,
things.
It's his pet project.
It's based on his garden.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, clearly he enjoys it, and it's something that he wants to work on and wants to have out there. He's trying to make fetch happen with the Pikmin thing, I guess. But so on one hand, I think it's cool that we're going to get more Pikmin. But on the other hand, it's like in this time of desperation,
which Nintendo finds itself
and
firmly seated
and
in.
short-handedness.
Yeah.
Maybe a new Metroid or something with a little more, or just finishing Zelda or anything.
I mean, think about it.
I don't know their internal structure, but it's like continuing to throw. I mean, I don't want to say good money after bad, but it's like...
That's really what it is.
It's just that downward trend of like, is Pikmin 4 really going to make any eyeballs pop other than the people like us who already like Pikmin?
Right.
I don't know, but it's also kind of like their holiday
I mean, it
lineup.
could have some revolutionary feature that
You never know.
does ingratiate it to a new audience, but
Maybe it's
chances
not
of
Wii
that... Chances of that, I'm guessing, are really slim.
Probably not huge.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of where they've sort of settled right now. Is you've got Xenoblade Chronicles X, you've got Fatal Frame, you've got even Star Fox is kind of B-list, a little bit. But it's all there for people, for the people who love that stuff. Like, it's a great holiday season,
I think it's just basically, these are all olive branches to fans.
A little bit.
So that they don't totally abandon Nintendo.
And it's better than nothing,
NX.
and they're holding those big guns back for the NX. I think that's what,
But think
Mario
back to,
Maker is
the
probably
last
the last
year and a half of that console's lifespan. Like, how badly it could have used a AAA Nintendo game.
Yeah.
While this was being built behind the scenes, I think it was Look, I love Pikmin, as we established when we started talking about this, but it was a terrible idea to make Pikmin 4.
Not now. Maybe
I don't even
later.
know, maybe next generation of consoles when you have
let
more
it cool
power.
off.
I mean, your audience has spoken. There's 10 million Wii U's out there at a 10% attach rate, which isn't that bad, really. But was that just because there was nothing else available for the console? Like, what percentage of sales were that? You know, if it had a thriving third party.
But there's Nintendo seems to kind of have a little bit of a blind spot when it comes to Pikmin. Maybe because Miyamoto's so fond of it. Where even the first two didn't burn the charts up totally on the GameCube, but they did get Wii updates. They did get Wii re-releases with the motion controls and all that. I feel like
I think that's them trying to get their investment back.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, also, it made sense to, motion controls make sense with that game, and it also was probably one of those things where once you sell 50 million Wiis, you're like, well, let's release Pikmin and see if that catches fire, which it didn't.
Sure. Yeah,
because everybody was just playing Wii Sports over and over again.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's probably a more constructive way they could have used their time and money, but I will still buy Pikmin 4.
Yeah. I'll buy it and play it too, but we're being selfish,
right?
And we're just basically talking about ourselves. We're not talking about.
But that's kind of how Nintendo's. I feel like that's a Nintendo fan thing right now. Is everybody's kind of got their selfish thing they want out of Nintendo, and
most would probably say Metroid.
Yeah, and a lot of it, even Metroid is not a sales burner, really.
It's not.
I mean, it's all Mario and Pokemon.
And
essentially,
even Zelda,
Zelda's not on the level. It totally sells.
This big budget
for sure, but it's also not Pokemon or Mario. I mean, Pokemon and Mario are in a class by themselves.
Well, even 3D Mario doesn't sell like gangbusters. I mean,
true. That should have been. That should have been one of the big, I think, red flags with Mario Galaxy. Is it sold what? It was 10 million or something like that, and at that point there were 100 million Wiis. It's when you only have that attach rate for the one of probably the best reviewed Mario game in how many years, you got to wonder, are people even buying the software at that point?
I don't even know if Mario Galaxy sold that many.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't remember what the numbers for that were, but I just remember seeing those numbers at the time and being shocked that game only sold that many copies on a system with that install base.
Yeah.
And to me, you
can say that about a lot of Wii software for Nintendo.
Well, I think I will never know because Nintendo will never tell us, but I'm sure I would bet money that if you were able to somehow survey it, about half the Wiis that were ever sold never played anything except Wii Play and Wii Sports.
Yeah.
It was just a set-top toy that no one, that grandma or whoever bought, and they played bowling a bunch, and then that was it. It did not move Nintendo games for
It's not going to. It never moved games the way the PlayStation 4 is going to eventually move games.
Well, you
think about the 5th or 6th year of the PlayStation 4's lifespan. It is going to be shoving software.
It never moved games the way even the Nintendo 64 did.
Yeah.
I mean, the Nintendo 64 didn't have a huge install base, but a lot of you could count on that install base to buy the quarterly Nintendo game. Yeah. Those Banjo games sold. Donkey Kong 64 sold. That stuff. It burned up the charts when it
finally was released. Yeah. But I think the software drop may have been even worse on the N64.
I think the difference for me pre-Wii was that every quarter, Nintendo only released something about once a quarter, but I was interested in everything they released, and then the Wii, beginning with stuff like Wii Music and Wii Fit, suddenly a couple quarters of the year I wasn't interested anymore. So now you're down. I was down to 2 Nintendo games a year.
Yep.
And that was a problem.
Yeah, and they've kind of continued that trend with the Wii U, sadly. So I guess both of us happy there is going to be a Pikmin 4, but for the financial health of Nintendo, probably not the best idea. Oh, any guess on which console it's going to be available for? They haven't announced it.
I'm going to say both.
Yeah, it's kind of has to be.
I think.
But that's also a little discouraging looking at the NX because, we've been saying that with Zelda for Wii U as well. It's probably going to be one of those dual releases.
I think Zelda's going to the NX, period.
Exclusively.
I don't think it'll be on the Wii U.
Why?
Because I think the surest way to make sure that all the people that felt screwed over by the quick move from the Wii U to the NX, to get them to buy an NX, is to put Zelda on it exclusively. Because everyone will complain, but we're all still going to buy that system to play the Zelda game.
Yeah.
It's mean, but
they could have done it with the Wii.
Yeah,
they didn't.
But they didn't. But I think they weren't as in dire straits on that, and it was kind of a reward to the GameCube people that didn't want to quite upgrade yet. Right. But now I think they need this new system to be
there. The Wii U selling worse than the GameCube by a wide margin.
Worse than the Dreamcast.
They need to double the sales of the Wii U before they send it off to pasture for it to match the GameCube.
And that's why
think about that.
And that's why I'm saying if I'm thinking in ruthless mode, if I'm thinking in survival mode, put Zelda only on the NX as a launch title, you're going to piss off a lot of people that were expecting it on the Wii U they bought. But the number of people you're going to piss off who own the Wii U anyway, but don't buy it anyway, the people who like refuse to do that is going to be near zero.
Yeah.
So because you're also dealing with people that bought the Wii U, a lot of your core fan base, and like you can piss off.
As long as it's really good.
Yeah, but I mean, you can piss off the core fan base as much as you want, but they're still going to follow you to the next Zelda game.
Yeah.
You know, so like it's mean, and it would be a really kind of a shitty thing to do. But
Twilight Princess wasn't a huge seller, by the way.
No, it wasn't.
It sold well enough to rationalize the budget they spent on it, but
I still wish I bought the GameCube version. That was stupid. I should have bought the GameCube version.
Well, I wasn't even talking about Twilight Princess. I was talking about Skyward Sword.
Oh, Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Twilight Princess sold great.
What did Skyward Sword sell?
Like 3 million, something like that. Yeah.
I didn't like that one very much.
I actually didn't enjoy it as much as most Zelda games. I mean, I reviewed it for Game Show, so everyone can see my review of it there, but it was still a really good game. It felt like an old game in a lot of ways. Like, that was the Zelda where I was like, okay, a lot of the things that you're saying were decisions, like the mumbling and the talking, like, that was fine in the prior games when they didn't try to make it seem like there were conversations between the characters. But then, like, in Skyward Sword, they had to have, like, the flappy jaw at one point, and that was, like, the deal breaker. I was like, all right, like, it's time to move on. And for you, and also for Zelda games to be judged fairly against other games in its genre that aren't Zelda. Because other games will get dinged for stuff like that. And so, I felt like Zelda needed to get dinged for it at that point because the rest of the industry had moved on. And anyway.
I must have gotten you some good email.
Oh, let me tell you. Yeah, people really love that review on GT for Skyward Sword. Oh, boy. All right, well, it's time to move on to the next topic. And this one is sure to invoke a little furor from Matt Kyle. Yeah. From me, too. And we're talking about the Deus Ex Mankind Divided pre-order program.
Yeah, very apt title.
Look, before we flare, one thing I do want to say is that it is a good idea in theory.
I can see why that was thought of as a good idea in the meeting.
In theory. Yeah. The execution is where it falls flat. So basically how it works is that the more people that pre-order Deus Ex Mankind Divided, the more it's kind of like a Kickstarter.
Yeah,
and that,
it unlocks tiers.
It unlocks like tiers of like pre-order bonuses. So basically it's like a crowdfunding pre-order program, and then everybody who does it gets better stuff for doing it.
But then on each tier you have to pick which bonus you get. So even people who are okay with the tier system are like, well, wait, I want all 3 tier 1 things. Like, no, you got to pick one.
Right.
And then like the tier 2 is like, I think it's like an exclusive level or like a digital soundtrack.
Right.
And people are like, but I want the level, but I also want the soundtrack. And so, or you can pay $150 for the collector's edition and get everything.
Right.
And yeah, it really is like a Kickstarter, isn't it?
It is. That's really what it is.
But like,
the real kicker though is 4 days early.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's really the big thing is like, if enough people pre-order the game, they will release the game 4 days early, which is just all bullcrap anyway.
Even the physical version?
I believe so.
Wow.
Or no, I think it's digital only. Yeah, okay. Digital only. Like you would put in a code or whatever, and then you would get the digital version of it. Like I guess if you pre-order it, you would be able to get it the 4 days earlier on digital. So you're like separating, you're like creating this like haves and have not thing. You're also basically like there's nothing to it. Like releasing something 4 days early is not a big deal. It's like you're basically just flipping a switch on a server somewhere and saying, "Yep, you can get it now."
Boom.
Like,
we could have released it 2 weeks early, but we don't care. You know, it's like I like the thing about the pre-order thing is.
I mean, first of all, I hate pre-orders.
Yeah,
period.
For years I refused to pre-order. I was like, you don't get my money because they get your money and then they're making interest on that money. Yep. But, for months before you get the game, and I'm like, you don't get it until I would go in the day of and buy it, and usually there was a couple extras, and eventually as the industry expanded, that ceased to be possible. Like sometimes you'll walk in for the hot new game now, and they literally only got enough to cover pre-orders, and that's it.
I don't think that's true though, man. Like I don't think there's really any unless you want the swag.
Yeah.
there's really no reason to pre-order. I can't remember the last time I went to a game store on a game's launch day and there weren't enough copies for everybody.
Actually, these days, if I pre-order, it's because I don't want to forget it's coming out.
Oh, yeah. You get that phone call from the game store.
Yeah, that or like Amazon. I order on Amazon and like a package will show up. I'm like, what the hell is this? Oh, Fallout 4. Right, yes, okay, yeah. I order for some of the swag from like if I go to GameStop, it'll be because I want one of the pre-order bonuses.
Right.
And they've gotten better about a lot of that
It used to be
stuff.
just a poster.
Yeah, but like, well, it's also like, I mean, they've gotten better about, things are at midnight. Used to be that stupid midnight launches, and they were like total chaos, and now they figured out kind of the group system, and now they go on sale at 9 here at Pacific time because they go digital live on at midnight Eastern, so everybody wants everything at the same time. So it's gotten better, but like the pre-order thing, there's...
You also get, if you pre-order, you also get like an extra level that everyone else can't play. And they put out a separate trailer just for that level, and the level looked like pretty extensive. It wasn't just like a fetch quest like mission that you go on that lasts for like 5 minutes and then it's gone. Like it looked like a pretty substantial chunk of game.
Yeah, which short circuits kind of the usual way I rationalize out the pre-order, because like in-game pre-order stuff for the most part, it's like, have you ever gotten anything that was useful more than like an hour and a half into the game? It's like, it's like, oh, get this special gun, and it's just like, oh, this gun is one tick better than the thing you start with. You find something better like in the second level,
and you forget about that.
You forget about the pre-order thing forever.
Or it's always cosmetic. It's like a hat or like cape or something that you get in-game.
Yeah, or it's too much, or it's like, like I think Forza 6, I'm looking at all the pre-order stuff for that, and there's like 15 different cars you can get depending on where and what you pre-order, and I'm just like, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
It also gets too confusing after a while.
Or like all the the Ubisoft games, people always work up that the big spreadsheet of like what's in what box versus which place you pre-order and what store has this, and I mean at some point you're just like, I'll just see you when it's $19. You know, like. But this thing is I mean, I get why people are kind of reacting badly to it because it feels insidious.
It does.
Even if it's maybe not in the end, but like there's like this weird thing about, you're already in this, the industry is already kind of like obsessed with this pre-order thing of like, give us your money before we give you the product. Yeah. Which like, that doesn't really happen in a lot of other industries.
Like really anything.
Like, I mean, you got to
games.
You got to order tickets for things earlier, but it's like, at no point do you have to like, okay, well, give us your money now, and we'll get that car to you in November.
Yeah,
It's like, it's not really how it works.
No.
And so there's kind of that feeling like, why should I give you my money now just to make sure I get a mass release retail product the day it comes out? Like, why shouldn't you just order enough to satisfy demand?
And then you really start thinking down the road, and when they put out like the definitive edition or whatever, all that stuff's going to be in it anyway. So,
and I know there's people that very intentionally did, especially with like Arkham Knight. There's a lot of people I know that wait. They're like, nope, I'm going to wait for the Game of the Year edition when it includes everything, and that's probably smart. But I'm a big impatient gorilla, so I'm terrible at doing that.
Well, it's funny too because like if you look at this story on Sifted, like at the top, people are like, oh my god, this is insidious. I can't believe this is the lowest of the low. You keep scrolling down, someone's like, oh wow, I just pre-ordered. Because it does kind of depend on your perspective on how you take something like this. You could look at it like it's awesome, like, oh my gosh, I get to pick what's in my collector's edition basically, or my whatever rewards I'm getting instead of just having to take what I'm given. But then you really start thinking about like the psychology that's going on, and then the money that's changing hands, the interest that's made off of it, and the whole pre-order culture in general, and how it squeezes out like worthy games out of retail that should have shelf space, but they don't because so many people pre-ordered Deus Ex, and so it squeezes out one of the little guys and keeps those games from being exposed to people who may really like them, and maybe expands their horizons and they start liking different genre. Like,
it's really starting to divide mankind.
Yeah, exactly. Gamer kind divided. Exactly. And then there's just like the whole haves and have-not thing. It's like, oh, well, if you pre-order, then you're like, you're elite. And then Shane, who just stumbles into the store on launch day, well, here's your game. Like, you don't get any of this other cool stuff. I don't know.
No, you don't get the shiny cover.
Exactly, yeah. It's only going to get worse because, especially if something like this takes off, like I haven't looked at any of the stats to see like how many people have pre-ordered and like how many tiers they've unlocked at this point or anything. But if the game is still like 6 months away, it comes out like late February or whatever. So there's a lot of time. But if this becomes really successful, they're going to repeat it.
Yeah.
Square Enix will repeat it. Other publishers will repeat it. I mean, look, it's one of those things that happens in a meeting where people are like, oh my God, that's like the best idea we've come up with in like 6 months. And then...
You'll go far here, Johnson.
But then you have like the skeptical guy who comes into the office the next day and is like, hey, wait a minute, I thought about a couple... Too late, it's already in motion. And then that's corporate America.
Kill him.
Exactly. Or at the very least, fire him.
Yeah.
So... It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Like I said, as far as like the sifted users, they all seem kind of split down the middle on whether they think it's a good idea or a bad idea. But generally, that's the type of stuff that fosters great discussion. So,
and really, that's what they want more than anything.
Yeah, exactly.
People talking about it.
That's for sure. Oh yeah, I mean, look.
So well played.
Mission
Square Enix.
accomplished. Because here we just spent 10 minutes or whatever talking about it on GameFace. So it is what it is, but still a worthy topic of discussion, I feel.
I think so, and as the trend continues, I think we'll see it more and more. Especially if it's, like you said, if it's successful and people react more positively than negatively to it, I'm sure other people will follow suit.
Well, I guess a good part of it too is that eventually.
And wait till Final Fantasy 15 goes up for pre-order, people. Like, oh my God.
Well, the good part of it is that eventually it could morph into something that everybody likes.
Yeah.
Because any new idea, there's always going to be people who hate it, but once you get the feedback from it, you can kind of figure out where the bad parts are and kind of get rid of them and figure out how to work around them. So
actually, the game, Square Enix's game that would really rock that idea would be Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
Because you can stock those tiers with any kind of like Disney paraphernalia to slap on Sora's outfit or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the whole, I mean, wow.
Yep.
Wow.
They could work it for sure.
Goldmine.
All right, so I know we already talked about Destiny a little bit earlier, but really it's more about Bungie. But we are going to bring it back around because Destiny is, first of all, is a game that I played at launch until it was pretty much, I was at the end. Mm-hmm. And then I played the multiplayer a little bit and kind of fell out of love with it. I don't know if I was ever in love in the first place. Maybe that's the wrong choice of words. But there are big changes that just launched today. So Destiny 2.0, I guess is what they're calling it.
Year 2. Yeah.
Year 2. 2.0, whatever, launched today. And people are having crazy problems like with downloading it and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. Another reason I haven't gone back to Destiny is because it has become, for me personally, like very confusing. And I've said it on the show before, like I really don't even understand what's going on in the game anymore. But Matt, you have continued playing the game. And so you have a good understanding of how everything works.
I haven't played it in months, but
you played it after launch.
I played it for. I mean, I probably put 200 hours in.
Okay.
It. I mean, yeah,
I'd say you're pretty qualified to talk about it.
Yeah. So I haven't played the expansions that came out, even though I bought the stupid collector's edition, and so I got those for free, but I never went back because at a certain point, I spent like 2 weeks trying to grind for the right stuff to up my light level. I'm a forever 29. I never got to level 30 because it never was nice enough to drop the stuff I needed for that.
Right.
And so I just kind of stepped away from it. It was like, well, at a certain point you have to stop wasting your time every night. And now, the changes to 2.0, I think, are really going to try and pull me back in. It took me 6-something hours to download the update yesterday, and then after it was finally done at like 1 a.m. I tried to log in and the servers weren't working, so I have not played the Year 2 content yet. But all the stuff in there looks really good. I mean, you're going to be able to get to
What are the biggest changes that you feel like are going to impact it the most that might get you back to playing?
Well, what's going to get me back into playing, 3 main things. Your level is now determined by experience points, not the light thing. The light thing is a separate rating.
Which was completely confusing and
it was not well explained.
And obtuse and
it was too beholden to the random number god.
Mm-hmm.
It was like your character progression should not be tied to
random drops.
Yeah. And so now the light rating is going to be a separate thing from your level, and it's still going to rate the quality of your gear and like what you got. But it's not going to be totally tied to your character's progression in other respects. So that's better. So I'm like, okay, the fact that I will always be making progress of some kind when I log in is already better for me.
Yeah.
They're changing how the quest system works completely. So like, there's more faction quests. Faction quests like have a little more narrative to them supposedly. You can go to these like little kiosks and like redo missing quests, or like you're supposed. One of the key things for like because now you can get to level 34 through experience points rather than light leveling.
Right.
So one of the things you're supposed to that's recommended you do when you first log into the new version is you go to the kiosk and you can do all these like kind of the kind of the old style quests at the home base, kind of. I can't remember what they call Citadel or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you can go run around and just do like those little like talk to people quests, get a little
Right.
more XP and work your way. Because once you get, you're supposed to like get to 34 and then like sort of almost max your reputation level so that when Taken King goes live and the cap goes to 40, you can just turn a bunch of shit in.
Now,
and
Taken
jump
King
up.
goes live in a week.
Yeah. So this is like you got a week to get
next
used to
Tuesday,
this.
yeah.
And then the other thing, of course, is they've doubled your vault space, your inventory vault space.
That's great.
And all your shaders and everything they go in like these kiosk display things. So like you don't have to worry about having enough room for your
Explain shaders for
so
people.
Armor shaders are in the game. You have these armor shaders, and they're basically different coloring schemes you can equip to your armor. So it kind of personalizes, customizes your armor color-wise a little bit. And the problem with the old version was that, like, they took up inventory space, so there was only so many shaders you could own. So, like, people wanted to collect them all, so now there's, like, a specific place with all the shaders you've collected and all the shaders you don't have yet, and you can go up to the thing and, like, pick, like, this shader, and that'll color your armor, and you don't have to worry about inventory space, and it's all cool.
Right.
So basically, there are people who would say that now the game works the way the game should have worked on day one, and they are not wrong. But the point is that I really love the moment-to-moment gameplay in Destiny, and now that a lot of the kind of player-unfriendly bullshit has been removed or streamlined, I'm super willing to try it again.
Now, briefly, the Taken King obviously comes out next Tuesday. I don't know if comes out is the right word for it, but everyone will be able to play it beginning next Tuesday.
Takes your king.
What are the big changes for that? You already mentioned, obviously, how it ties into 2.0 a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's the continuation of the story. It features the first original stuff with Nolan North as Ghost, who has already in the new update replaced all of Peter Dinklage's lines.
Yeah, we actually curated a comparison video today that was like side by side. And I got to tell you, I prefer Dinklage.
I think both performances have their merits.
Because Dinklage sounds more like a robot.
Dinklage sounds more like a robot, and Dinklage sounds more alien.
Yeah.
I think people are like, oh, we got that inflection wrong, and I'm like, yeah, but there's something kind of fitting about some of the inflections he gets, quote unquote, wrong. Nolan North's Ghost is a much warmer performance.
He's conversational.
Very conversational, very emotionally involved in the happenings.
Yeah,
So and like a lot of people are saying that's better, and it is.
See, I feel like for the character, he's not even a character; it's a piece of machinery. Like, I feel like you need that coldness a little bit from a piece of machine.
I think there's merit to that, but like also part of me like. I played those scenes and those levels so many times that I feel like somebody, I think it was someone on Kotaku, in a Kotaku article about it, described it as Peter Dinklage Stockholm syndrome. That we've like played these levels so often, and like his line readings are so ingrained in our heads that like they're familiar,
like,
so we
you're
don't
like that's the way they're supposed to sound.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, we've woken the hive. Like to me, that's how that line's supposed to sound.
Yeah.
Like even if it's supposedly a bad read, but like Nolan North's going to take some getting used to. I wonder if it would have been smarter to make him a new character, a new Ghost. Maybe you get a different Ghost.
But then they have to rework.
But then you redo all that
and everything.
Then why do you have the old Ghost and if you redo an old mission? I don't. I get it, but like. It's going to be interesting to excuse me, to see how people accept the new Ghost.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at the comparison video on Sifted to see what people are saying about it. I just know, for me personally, after watching that, I prefer Dinklage more. But again,
I think you're in the minority.
It could be a familiarity thing where I'm just more familiar with him, and that's what I assume the Ghost sounds like at this point. And sure, there's some kind of goofy psychology going on inside my mind that's like making me think that way. But Nolan North, he voices frickin' everything. Maybe that's another part of it too. It's like, why is there just this one guy that voices everything in video games?
Just one guy. Troy Baker does some things
yeah,
too.
Exactly. It's like, I think it's crazy though. Like,
I think it's just because you know what you're gonna get, and the other thing, of course, Nolan North has tremendous range.
No, he's a great voiceover guy.
He goes in and everybody just asks for Drake, and so that's what you get. And I think he's at least not doing the default Drake voice in this one. But you can tell it's him because
he's a human being.
He's a human being. He sounds like he sounds. He has that warm yet crisp timbre to his voice, and you always know Nolan North. I mean, Nolan North is one of the soldiers on my mother base in Metal Gear. Yeah. And every time I hear him, I was like, oh, Nolan North.
There he is. Yeah, I hear him too all the time. Base. Yeah.
So but I don't mind. It's not like I get thrown out of the movie when I see Tom Cruise, and I know I've seen Tom Cruise before.
Right.
But I understand why some people are just like, oh my god. The one thing that's weird is how sometimes like it looks. I love Troy Baker. Troy Baker's a great voice actor, but I don't know why they keep making his characters look like him.
Yeah. Why is that?
He's a fine-looking young man, but like. At a certain point, you're like, why does Revolver Ocelot kind of look like Troy Baker?
Because
the emotion capture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's losing my mic.
But yeah, so I guess one thing I would say is, based upon what you just said to me, Matt, like I seriously don't think I'll still go back and play more Destiny. Like, a lot of the things that you're talking about are pretty small tweaks. Like, you said you like the moment-to-moment gameplay, but I got really burned out on just fighting the same guys over and over with the same AI. And
Destiny is weird to me.
Here's the thing. Destiny is an MMORPG.
Yeah.
And I think people who really end up loving Destiny a lot of times really liked World of Warcraft at one point or some other MMORPG. Those games have never resonated with me. I've never liked MMORPG. We've talked about it on the show before.
I'm not a huge fan either, but like to me,
you played World of Warcraft back in the day for quite a while, though.
Yeah, but part of that was because Morgan told me to. Like, it was like, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but I never got super hooked on any of those games. I didn't get super hooked on Destiny really for.
And look, it's not even fair to compare Destiny to World of Warcraft as far as like the gameplay and the combat is concerned.
Because the gameplay of Destiny is what kept hooking me.
It's better.
And I would sit there during the load screens and be like, "Why am I playing this? Like, what am I still doing this for? It's not going to drop the fucking thing. It's not going to happen." And but then I get into a game. And I'd get that, that little crystal shot on the torso of a Vex, and I'm just like, this game is awesome. Yeah. It's like that satisfying, pop of the head or a little weak spot on one of those guys, or one of those, big Warhammer kind of, Warhammer guys. Like, you just, pop the head and, all this stuff comes out. And I'm like, every single time it was like a little, it was that little dopamine explosion every single time.
And that's what it is.
And it was addicting. It was great. I enjoyed it. And at a certain point, I was just like, after Xur screwed me one last time by not selling the shit I needed for that weekend, I was just like, well, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. I still feel that way. Well, I'll be interested to get your report once you have time to play it.
Yeah, because I think you're right.
After the Taken King comes out and you have a chance to play that, I'm going to rely on you to decide whether I am going to jump back in or not.
Well, I think you're right when you say that they're pretty small tweaks, but for me, small tweaks are all I needed to kind of start enjoying it again.
And I think for me and a lot of people who played it maybe until they finished the campaign and didn't go back, I think probably they need something a little more. But we'll see. Maybe there are other things buried that we don't know.
Maybe the story in Taken King's going to be really cool.
It could be.
Maybe they
because the story in the original Destiny pretty much sucked.
Yeah, I don't really. I couldn't tell you. Really.
What story is probably the better way to put it. So we'll see. Taken King comes out next week. We don't have to wait long to figure out how it all shakes out. You'll be able to start playing the 2.0 stuff tomorrow. So probably next week's show will have at least a little bit of an update on that. So got a little bit of news today about the old Xbox One. It's been, it's been a great story for the Xbox One in the West. It's while it is getting its butt beat pretty good by PlayStation 4, it's still outselling Xbox 360 by several magnitudes. So all things considered, Xbox One is doing great. But today was the 1-year anniversary for Xbox One in Japan, Matt. And any guesses at how many consoles? And I don't know if you've seen the show graphics yet or not. But any guess at how many consoles they've sold in Japan in the first year of the Xbox One's life?
I'm going to say sub 100K.
That's right. They've sold 60K consoles in the first year.
Xbox done. Nice.
60K consoles.
That's not a lot, even for a smallish island nation.
Man. So here's the question.
Why can't Microsoft, why doesn't, they've had that problem in Japan for a while, but I mean, not on this magnitude, but...
Well, Xbox 360 did pretty well out of the gate. Like, it did well enough to rationalize staying in the territory.
But do you think 360 did it well on the level they were expecting with like getting Mistwalker in there exclusively?
Oh, no. Oh, of course not. I mean, when they signed those big JRPGs to Xbox, I'm sure they thought they had at least a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
At least. Like, and look, Microsoft at that point was still really arrogant. I mean, I feel like Microsoft has softened a little bit over time because, like, some of the stuff that Phil Spencer says now, like congratulating Sony on their sales, and when a good exclusive comes out for PlayStation 4, he's always like, "That's a great game. I wish we had it on our Microsoft never used to be that way, and maybe it's all Phil just being a human being, but Microsoft used to be the cocky guy that'd be like, "Screw you. If people like what you built better, they're stupid." Like, that was essentially like what their stance was, and so we've seen a softening over time of Microsoft, at least their public stance. Privately, who knows what they're saying, but this is just beyond 60,000. I mean, look, Japan is a rough market right now for everybody. Like, for instance, we just got the sales figures for Metal Gear Solid 5, its first week in Japan. It sold 500,000 copies across all platforms. It's the 5th best-selling Metal Gear Solid ever in Japan as far as the first week. 5th. It sold worse than Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear Rising Revengeance.
Wow.
Revengeance had a better first week than Metal Gear Solid 5 in Japan.
That platinum reputation.
And that wasn't even that long ago that Revengeance came out. So what we're seeing is a market that's quickly fading.
Shifting very
in
hard
Japan.
to mobile.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is. And so right now we're watching, like, for instance, I went to the Xbox Japan YouTube channel to try to figure out, like, how are they promoting stuff there? What, is it something that they're doing that's impeding their success?
Are the lab coats not crisp enough?
And sure enough, this is the type of stuff that I found. Like, just really bizarre. And look, Japan, a lot of promotional media in Japan is kind of bizarre, but they're promoting. They went
1 million troops.
Exactly. But look, they went through all this expense and time to promote Scream Ride, a roller coaster simulator. And the rest of the media that they have for Xbox games are just trailers from America with, like, Japanese dubbed over top of them. So, look, I don't know how big of a bet they've placed there really at this point. I mean, obviously launching the platform in the territory is a big bet all onto its own. But it doesn't look like they're dumping a ton of money into marketing at this point, with good reason, obviously. I mean, I don't know if you remember the photos of the launch of the Xbox One in Japan, but they had, like, the usual, like,
around the block.
No, well, there was, like, nobody. Like, and they had, like, the rope set up out front, and there was just no one. So, it did really poorly out of the gate. It
needs an Idolmaster.
Maybe it is something like that turns a tide. Like, they get
that was what the Idolmaster on 360 was, like, the highest selling DLC in Japan for anything ever.
Yeah, it did really
and
well.
That was I think to get all the Idolmaster 2 DLC on the 360, it cost something like $1,500.
Yeah.
Huge gold mine.
Yeah.
So, but that's now moving over to PS4
or mobile.
So, and Vita. And so Vita, they'd rather put that on the Vita than the
They'd
Xbox
rather put
One.
anything on the Vita than on Xbox One at this point.
So what do you do if you're Microsoft now?
That's the question. Like, do you stay? Do you go? I mean, and then you start thinking about...
If you go, there will be trouble.
Yeah. If you stay, there will be double. And then you start thinking about the next generation. Like, do you bother launching there?
I don't... I feel
and
like...
at that point, the market may be so small... Yeah. Will anybody launch? Like, I'm really starting to wonder if, like, video game consoles will even launch in Japan in, like, 2 generations.
Yeah. Is there, like, is it that inertia or that kind of tradition of, like, the game console, notwithstanding pre-84 video game crash, because of Nintendo, you think of video game consoles come from Japan.
Right.
Yeah.
And
the idea of not having your console in Japan used to sort of be the idea, like, well, then you're not a real console.
Right.
But now... is the market big enough and global enough that
you don't need Japan
You don't need
anymore.
to worry about Japan anymore.
I mean, Microsoft's making a killing.
Yeah.
They aren't making any money in Japan.
But then, like, do you also torpedo yourself? And it's like, what if, not that it's a huge thing, but, like, what if Microsoft didn't release in Japan? Would they still have Scalebound? Would you still be able to get Japanese developers to work on your system?
Yeah, because it's just money.
There's money there.
Yeah. I mean, that was just a cash play. That wasn't like Platinum being like, we really want to make a game for the 50,000 Xbox One owners in Japan. Like,
some of those guys are going to be very grateful, though.
yeah. I mean, honestly, the only players in Japan who really play Western games are developers. Like, the people who make games in Japan are the ones who might be interested in an Xbox One. But
I wonder how many American expatriates have those Xbox Ones.
I'm guessing 5,000 of those sales are Americans who are living in Japan who bought it. But, man, it is just awful. Like, I can't remember a console doing this poorly in Japan, like that had the force of marketing behind it that Xbox One does. And
makes you wonder what the trick is.
They still have shelf space over there. Like, you go to game stores and they still have a good third of the shelf space, like, which would lead you to believe that Microsoft is greasing some palms over there with the retailers. Like, why else would you keep the shelf space in there? Yeah. Like, if you went there towards the end of the GameCube era, you could tell Nintendo was definitely not greasing palms, because, like, they would have, like, literally one little dinky rack and maybe like 5 consoles there for sale. So, you know, at this point, it's probably too late for them to pull Xbox One out of Japan. But the reason I want to talk about this is just, in the future, not just for Xbox One, but will these console manufacturers, even 10 years from now, will it even be viable to release a console in Japan? Because it's really not at this point. I mean, the Wii U,
even Sony.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Sony's done terrible too, relatively speaking. It hasn't done great at all. I mean, that's evidenced by the Metal Gear numbers more than anything. Yeah, so
I feel like, with the Japanese market shift to so hard to mobile, there's probably no way to recover that. And then with the console market opening up in China, like, I feel like that's going to more than make up for whatever you might lose by not being in Japan. So maybe you're right. Like,
China does all PC, which they're finding out now. Is that China's not buying consoles. Like, they're sticking to their PC games and going to their internet cafes. So Asia just seems like, unless you're playing like League of Legends, they don't care.
Yeah,
and that's a PC game. So I don't know. It's not looking good in what I consider the cradle of video games. Yeah. And that's really discouraging to think about, that there may be, not too long from now, a day where there are no consoles released in Japan.
Yeah, which is really an interesting twist, considering the this generation, and everybody was like, oh, consoles are dead. No one cares about consoles. No, not true.
No one in Japan does.
Tons of people care about consoles, but it's all in the West.
Yeah. And now Tokyo Game Show is coming up. That will be a good barometer for Japan's industry. Although, if you look at the floor plan of that, it's almost all mobile.
I'm just hoping to find out one way or the other on Persona 5.
That's the big question mark coming up for TGS. I think everybody's wondering the same thing. I mean, there's a secret Square Enix game that they're showing for the first time that was kind of shown in a trailer for their TGS.
What about Kingdom Hearts 2.9?
Yeah, exactly. Another LinkedIn leak there. So, all right, I think it's time to move on to our last topic of the Big Six. So, gaming's changing, Matt. We have people on YouTube making $8 million a year. We have live streamers making their living sitting at home, streaming video games while other people watch it. Well, even pop culture dorks who have no clue what they're talking about, like Jimmy Kimmel, have picked up on it. And so this week, Jimmy Kimmel ran like a funny little thing where he basically can't understand why people want to watch other people playing video games. And in all honesty, like this little segment that you're seeing right now is really funny. They end up nailing it. They do the whole how far do you take it, where you have a guy watching a guy. Here it is, a guy watching a guy watching a guy, and God watching that guy. I thought it was really funny. And so basically,
third watch.
And then I think eventually it goes to God, who is watching everybody. Yeah. So it's really funny. It's really clever. I feel like they really kind of tapped into it. They didn't really rag on gamers, but what happened was they posted the archive of this video to YouTube, and the gamers went crazy and went after Jimmy Kimmel and his show, and it was a lot of the same arguments, like, the one argument they always use is like, well, why do you watch live sports instead of playing the sport? Like when they try to explain away why people like to watch people playing video.
Because I can't do that.
Right, because I don't have 25 people waiting to play football, or 10 people, and I don't have a basketball court and a football field. Like, but that's the argument that they trotted out over and over. And like literally, like some of the stuff they said to Jimmy Kimmel, like it made us look really, really bad, man. And that's the thing. Is it like a lot of times those are the people who are watching the Let's Players are the toxic, like aggravating people on YouTube, or the ones who watch.
I mean, you've
the
seen
Let's Play.
Twitch chat,
right?
I mean, our Twitch chat is a very weird thing.
It is.
In
you're
that
right.
It's full of like adults who are speaking respectfully to one another.
Yeah, it's always funny after we finish the broadcast. Like I have to wrap stuff up here and like get things ready to like work on the archive and get the archive up on the site. But eventually, I'll always go back to like my iPad or my iPhone that I was using for the chat, and I'll kind of scroll back through the whole chat to make sure I didn't miss any like questions from a subscriber or anything like that. And it is crazy how awesome the chat is in our streams. I mean, a part of it probably is that we don't have like a massive audience watching, and I'm sure that helps a good bit. But the people who come into our streams are definitely far more respectful than what you typically get. But what you're seeing here are the people going after Jimmy Kimmel, and it is not pretty. And I'm sure they didn't print a lot of like the worst ones, even though the ones that they did show on the show were really bad. And so he came back with that. Yeah, there you go. Get cancer. There's get brain cancer.
The cancer montage.
Yeah, there's
get AIDS.
Get AIDS. Yeah. So good job, gamers, making people like Matt and I and the people watching this stream look great. And so what happened was Jimmy took all this abuse from all these users, and then on a third segment, he actually had a couple of the streamers come on the show and explain to him what streaming is all about, what the audience is about, and he even the girl that you see on the right there, he even kind of busts her cojones a little bit because he like starts going through some more Twitter comments and he pulls hers up where she's But nonetheless, he still brought her on the show, and so they watch like a VR live stream. And then they actually live stream themselves. They play some Rocket League. So, Matt, what is it about live streaming that it's just like there's a certain cutoff of people that just can't seem to get it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't quite get it. I mean, that's the thing.
Right,
is, like,
we're in that group that doesn't really get it. Like
because it's like the whole like why don't you play football? Why don't you play? Well, like. It's like kind of like I do understand why I watch Evo on stream or like tournaments and stuff where like it's like yes these guys are doing things I can't do,
which is why I watch sports, because the players in these games are way better than I ever was.
Or they like Street Fighter, like that's why I watch, or even stuff that's more casual like the Adventures of Gutex and Mike Ross, where it's Excellent Adventures, where it's like those two guys are way better at Street Fighter than I'm ever going to be, even after 25 years. So it's fun to watch them do stuff. But like most live stream stuff is not that. It's just people playing games very casually and hanging out and talking and all that. Yeah. And like, I don't really care about that. And so to me, that's not a valid argument. Like, why don't you go do this? Well, because I do that myself. I do just go play a game rather than that. But I kind of, I think we've talked before about how, like, we're lucky in that we have friends and, people who also play games. We can always find people in real life to go hang out with, either play games or talk about them or whatever. Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that don't have that and find that in these live streams. And so I think that's one of the reasons you see people reacting so virulently and toxically to this is the idea of questioning how, because I thought that skit was funny. Like, I think you got to be able to laugh at because frankly, any hobby is ridiculous if you're super into it.
Do you think that's the root of the whole problem, though, is that a lot of gamers take themselves way too seriously and cannot ever be made fun of?
Possibly. I mean, you hear the whole kind of narrative about like how it's a refuge from bullying or it's a refuge from being an outcast or nobody else likes this and I found a community online that does, so I don't feel like I'm as alone.
But aren't these people doing to other people exactly what they detest? They're trying to bully other people.
Somewhat, but I think the impetus of it is like it becomes something that they can't joke about because it's too much of a lifeline. And while I get that, like, my whole career has kind of been about making fun of games talking about them lightheartedly, kind of having it be something you enjoy. But I think, there's a real thing that a lot of people have about having these outsiders in their world. And, and sometimes, I try not to have that attitude. Sometimes I do. I had it a little bit on Force Friday when I was standing in line with 300 other quote-unquote Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back to the Episode 1 merchandise launch where there was 30 people, and I'm like, look, in 15 years, geek stuff has gotten so huge, and you can't go to a nerd convention or anything without just being swamped by people.
See, I've done that at concerts for bands that I really like.
Yeah,
where I've followed them for years and years, and I've bought all their albums, but then suddenly something happens and they become big and they get this new influx of fans, and you go to the concert and these people are elbowing you, or they're not paying attention to the show, or they're watching the whole show through their cell phone. I get defensive over it. And so there is a semblance of that innate, I don't even know what you would call
it. You probably don't want the guy holding the cell phone up to get cancer.
No, and I would never say anything like that. But I get annoyed by it,
right?
By their behavior.
Me too.
But yeah, of course, I'm never going to go and say the things that people said to Jimmy Kimmel. And so, what is it though about R? And I almost hate to say R, because I don't want to really be associated with people who do stuff like that.
If I knew the answer to that, I would probably be doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know what makes you want to say that to someone.
But it's not even what they say. It's just that they get so defensive over gaming that it compels them to act in this way.
Yeah, I think it's it's an important part of some people's lives. Important part of people who identify as gamers. As we've seen a lot of that.
But the irony is that when you're watching somebody else play games, here's a little surprise for you: you're not a gamer.
Yeah, but do they?
You're a spectator. It's I don't call myself an NFL player when I watch an NFL game.
But when the Steelers win, do you say we won?
I don't actually.
Okay.
I know a lot of people do that.
Okay,
though.
well you're sane. So
no, but I know a lot of people that do.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah,
it's we won. It's well, you didn't win. You
didn't do anything.
You watched it on TV.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there's that feeling of identity, and when someone sits there and says this thing is stupid, some people are going to take that as a personal attack, and it's on one hand it's ridiculous, but on the other hand it's human nature. And the main thing
But I don't think it's human nature to react in that way.
No, the main thing is when you get upset about that, you should probably just go back and do the hobby.
Go do it!
Rather than decide to yell at Jimmy Kimmel on the internet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still convinced that a lot of people that watch Let's Plays are just people who can't afford games, or people who are too young to be able to buy the
When I was a kid and all I had to play over and over again was the Game Gear version of Shinobi, to the point that I could play it without getting hit. I would have watched live streams all the time too of all these games that I couldn't afford, or maybe games that you aren't allowed to buy or play because they're M-rated or whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
But mom and dad don't know that you're
on the
YouTube
watching someone play all the way through Phantom Pain or whatever. Right. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And look, I understand that as well. Just like you, when I was a kid growing up, my family wasn't rich. I got a couple games a year, and they were always my birthday or Christmas or whatever. And so a big part of playing as many games as possible with having somebody else who had a Genesis while I had a Super Nintendo, and trading those consoles for a few months at a time so we could play each other's games, which I kind of liked, that whole community part of it. But, it was never like this. But I could understand now why kids would be if there was such a thing as Let's Plays back then, I would watch them, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're at least experiencing these games a little bit. Even if not fully, you are kind of living vicariously through the people who are playing them a little bit. And if you find somebody you like, I can understand why kids are into Let's Plays, totally. But when you start getting up over the age of 8 or 9, or maybe even younger than that, that's where it starts to get a little dicey. Because, you can see, well, maybe the grammar isn't great, but you can definitely tell that some of the people writing this stuff, they're not 8-year-old kids. They're teenagers and 20-year-old people. And to me, that's where it gets scary, is when you basically have an adult who is acting out in this sort of way. But it is the internet.
But medical science tells us that your brain doesn't fully develop until the mid-20s, and one of the last things to kind of fully form is the part of your brain that understands consequences.
Yeah.
Which is one reason when you're a teenager, you do things that now we look back and I'm just holy crap, how am I not dead?
Yeah.
From that, and
Yeah.
And I'm sure that applies to internet comments as well. It's just like, and you see this. It's not just a gaming thing, because like you see, these kids that kill themselves because people like harass them online. Their friends, classmates or people they know or whoever like harass them online until they have no safe place to turn, kind of thing. Like, people don't think about the consequences anyway. And then if you're a teenager and you don't have any, your brain isn't fully formed in the consequence department yet. And then on top of that, you do it with that kind of screen of, not anonymity, but like that screen of sort of detachment between the computer and the internet and the other person. Like, I can totally see how it would become simple to just sort of behave that way and detach yourself from the consequences that would be attached to that if you behave that way to someone in person. Because clearly you're not actually going to tell Jimmy Kimmel to his face as he walks out of his studio to get cancer and AIDS. No. Like, no one's going to do that.
No,
but like
keyboard warriors.
But like, it's just, I think that's just part of that world, and we don't. We're on the tail end, the front end of that. We remember a world without the internet. We, thank God, all of our youthful indiscretions are not on YouTube for our children to find one day and be like, well, you can't tell me not to smoke that because look at this video. And it's just, it's like, don't tell me to wear a helmet because like, look at this thing where you jumped off the roof. It's a different world for these kids.
It is, for sure. But I still feel like...
I don't think that excuses that behavior. It
definitely doesn't, yeah.
But it's just one of those things where this, and I don't know, like, do you think, like, do we have to accept that this is going to happen periodically now? Like,
what's going to happen?
Like,
that type of a reaction?
Yeah,
or
someone's going to say something, people on the internet aren't going to like it, and you're going to get this crazy sort of death-threatening
Yeah, I think you are going to have to accept that.
Yeah, like, there's no real solution.
I think it's only going to get worse, in all honesty, as people become more and more isolated by technology. Because that's the irony of technology, is that technology rarely seems to be built to bring people together. It always seems to be built for people to be...
It's sold on that.
Yeah, but it never is.
It's not used that way.
Yeah, it's always used for people to be isolated but not bored. And until that paradigm shift happens, what?
Man, you could just slap that on a picture of someone in a VR helmet right now. Yeah. Isolated but not bored.
Yeah. And until that paradigm shift changes in philosophy of entertainment, like, I just think it's going to keep getting worse.
Like, I've got an image in my head of like people in like a VR bar where everybody's just laying in like dentist chairs with these things on, and like you've got like two circles, and the two circles, like, these two people are really angry at each other.
Yeah, it's like,
but it's all
we all came here to be alone.
Yeah, we came here to be alone together so we can play the same game together.
But I know you're there.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. It gets so twisted, Matt. It really does.
It's like, why don't you just get up and go punch him?
Yeah.
He's right there. But no, I don't know. It's going to get weirder. I don't know if it's going to get worse, but it's going to get weirder.
VR is going to make stuff really weird. There's going to be this odd fringe, I think, that's just going to... Because really, you could just not even have a real life anymore. Yeah. You can have this fake life that is totally absorbing. And like I've mentioned before, like... Once Facebook gets a hold of VR, which, I mean, they've already got a hold of it, but once they integrate VR into Facebook, and so you're visiting people, like, virtually through Facebook.
Or like Netflix wants to have it be like you go sit in a virtual theater with all your friends and watch a movie.
Watch it with like, people are never going to leave their house.
Yeah. Well,
then Amazon has the drones coming to your door, so you don't have to go out and buy anything anymore.
Well, there is an actual, like, speculative, it's not, I won't call it a scientific theory or anything, but it's like, it's a hypothesis that, like, because everybody has those questions about, like, if life is so common in the universe, where is everybody? Like, how come we've only seen it? And one of the actual like hypotheses is that at a certain point, a civilization develops basically VR, the Matrix, basically, and everybody jacks into that thing, and exploration stops.
Yeah.
And like, and somewhere, so that out there in the galaxy, there's probably like, 7, 8 dozen or so civilizations maybe, but they've all plugged into this VR world.
They've given up.
And they don't care.
They don't have a need anymore.
They don't care anymore. It's like if you want to go to Mars, you just go to Mars in the Morpheus.
Yeah,
like,
that's the point.
Yeah.
And you can breathe.
Yeah. So it's a possibility.
Yeah. That probably should have been called our deep dive because we went pretty deep right there.
Yeah, we got serious.
Okay, so that's going to wrap up the Big Six. We do have a trailer of the week this week for you guys, and it was actually slim pickings for trailers of the week, but the good news is the one we selected is really freaking awesome, and I know when I tell you what game it is, you're going to be like, oh, what? It's Forza Motorsport 6, but don't groan or go to the bathroom just yet. This is a really...
Yeah, it's a good one.
This is a really cool trailer that harkens back to the old school arcade days and early console days. So stick around. This is actually the TV commercial for Forza Motorsport 6.
Rated E for everyone. Exclusive.
So we like to have fun on GameFace, but, well, actually, let's talk about that trailer first. What I love about that trailer is the audio. Like, they pull all the sound effects from, like, pole position and, like, I can't even remember the name of that arcade racing game, but they showed it right at the beginning. It's just black and has, like, a white outline for the course. And then it had 4 wheels on the front of the arcade machine. And every time you come to a turn, you'd have to whip the wheel and let the wheel...
Sprint.
That's it, yeah. Like, I just love... They pulled all the best, like, old games, all the best sound effects from those games. Like, class work right there. Because let's be honest, like, they've put out, like, 20 trailers for that game. And after, like, the second one, like, I was like, whatever.
Yeah, cars.
I know, I watched one that was Cars. And then I watched one that was Cars in Rain.
Yeah.
And after I saw both of those, I was like, I get it. I don't really need to see anymore.
Yeah, 3D puddles. I'm into it.
But they've managed to find a way to make that game look really interesting.
And it's also a way of kind of connecting it up, you know, because like it's so tempting and so common, especially with like Gran Turismo and stuff. Kind of that whole, it's a simulation of the greatest simulation of cars you'll ever see. It's a driving simulation, like, and like, you know, even as someone who's interested in cars and that kind of thing, it's just like, come on.
Yeah.
But that one it's tying Forza directly to all the fun and all the arcade action and all the good stuff you've played all through the years. Anything with wheels in video gaming, with the outrun references and all that. And so that's a really good approach for it. It really makes it seem like something you want to play.
Yeah. Excellent work from whoever created that commercial.
Yeah, I don't know who that was, but they should get a lot more work.
Yeah, for sure. So it's time to move into our deep dive. And as I was saying just a minute ago, you know, we like to have fun on GameFace, but sometimes there are things that happen in the industry that we need to talk about that aren't so fun. And this is definitely one of those cases here. And so there's this edutainment game that's called Playing History 2. And basically what the developers claim is that it's a video game that you're supposed to play through and learn about the history of the world. And so they've released one installment of this that focuses on slavery. And so basically it's supposed to be a way for kids to learn about the truth about slavery while playing through a game and making learning fun. Well, first of all, I don't know that we should ever mix the words slavery and fun into the same sentence.
No.
That was probably maybe the first red flag.
There's your first mistake.
Yeah.
Is if you're going to teach the kids about slavery, you probably don't want to cast them as the slave trader.
Yeah, you probably don't want to put it in a video game at all, because kids, when they're young, like, you know, as you get older and you play M-rated games, you don't immediately assign fun to video games. It's like there are serious games and there are games that make you think, but when you're a kid, every video game you play is fun. That's what you play games for, and that's all you're allowed to play are the quote-unquote fun games, because everything else is M-rated or teen-rated. So trying to make learning about slavery fun was just a big mistake. And the first thing we should mention is that this game was made in Europe. So there may be some cultural tone deafness going on with this.
Also, that guy's floating.
Yeah. Well, so this game was basically was on Steam Greenlight. And it ended up getting greenlit and going on through. And so the base part of the game is this. It's like kind of an adventure game where you kind of go through the world and talk to different people, and they explain things to you about how slavery worked, how it started, how it worked, and basically all the god-awful details about it. But what made this game controversial, because this game was on Steam for a while before anyone really noticed it. And then what really made the game controversial is that it has a mini game inside it that's like Tetris. And if you want to roll the footage there, Tony, of the next clip. So this clip is what really, really caused a huge uproar. And
You're
basically,
kidding.
No. So it's Tetris with slaves, essentially. Where you,
Wow.
where you, basically there are different, the slaves are shaped differently, and then you have to pack them into the boat like Tetris.
And it's like, look at the comical sea serpent.
Oh, it's insane.
Jazzing it all up.
Yeah, exactly. Look at like the happy-go-lucky
Oh my
mouse.
God.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's insane, dude.
Who-
Insane.
Like-
So, here's the thing. Once people got an eyeful of this, and you can take it off, Tony. I think we've seen enough of that. Once people got an eyeful of this, of course, there was like all kinds of outrage. And the developer had the balls to explain it, to try to explain it away. And he's like, oh, well, you know, our games are there to teach people. And sometimes, like, for people to remember something, it has to be shocking. Like, he was basically saying, like...
I'm pretty sure that's not
Yeah.
any, like, that's...
He was basically
there
saying...
was no human Tetris
Yeah.
to be played back. That's
Basically,
not a learning tool.
he was saying is that, like, in order to pound a point home sometimes, you need to shock people. And that was the theory that he used to explain why anyone would ever create something like that. Like, dude. So these last two stories, the Jimmy Kimmel thing, this thing, it's like two cases where other people are making me feel bad about playing video games. And the association of when people see stuff like this, they're like, oh, that's the way gamers are, and that's how gamers think. And, like, I feel like we almost have to take it back, man. Like, we need to start, like, this campaign. Like, Gamergate made me feel that way, too. It's like, you guys, why do you guys get to use the name Gamer in your title? Like, why can't you just be, like, Jerkgate? Like, why do you gotta drag me into it? And so... they did eventually. They wouldn't take the game down, but the people who made the game took the Tetris minigame out of it and then put it back up on Steam, where it is now, without that minigame. So,
I guess that's progress?
the uproar over it was like
how
overwhelming.
does that get to the... like, how...
Imagine the meetings.
Yeah.
Or meeting.
No one said
No
anything
one said,
about
hey!
that.
You might want to think twice about this one, because...
Because, wow. Like, what? I mean, I'm a little speechless on
And then
that.
it got
Like,
through Steam Greenlight, and like...
And how long? It was up there for months?
I don't think it was that
for a
long.
while?
I think it was just like a while.
Man, and like, I mean, just the art of the characters is not...
Oh, I know.
Particularly
just
kosher.
like, oh yeah, like even before we showed like the Tetris mini game, just the way they drew the African characters, or it's
the
like
giant bug
it's
eyes
awful,
and stuff.
man.
I mean, there's a... Well, it's like, you know, and sometimes you run into that, like, outside of, you know, America, you know, the U.S. has a very, it has the history of slavery, it has the Civil War, it has a century of, basically social mistreatment of African Americans.
Yeah.
And, you know, which is all coming to a head right now in the news. If you notice,
It
all
is,
this,
yeah.
all Black Lives Matter and all that is a direct reaction to, you know, kind of this problem. And outside of America, like, you know, that history doesn't necessarily exist, and you see things when you travel the world where you're like, oh my god, you know, like there's a store in Tokyo we found called Black Music, and it is exactly what you think it is, and some of the imagery they use in their flyers and around their store is something that would not
be really offensive
allowed
here.
in America. I mean, it's just not, you know, the blackface idea is not something we accept in this country,
Right.
and it's not it has become clear over the years that to me that does not carry that same stigma in Asia and Europe necessarily.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you get situations like this where like Americans will freak out about that. And I think it happened in Australia. It was in like a talent show or sort of thing in Australia where there was a group of white Australians who performed. Their act was they performed a minstrel show in blackface. And they did it with an American celebrity judge was there, and he gonged them and was just like horribly offended by it, and nobody understood.
They're
why.
like, "What? They were great."
And they're like, and he's like, "This is a very serious and important thing in American history, and we do not allow that. We do not accept that. We do not think that is something that's acceptable." And so sometimes I think in this international world where you've got a lot of these games coming from all over the place, on one hand, I'm shocked that anybody thought that was okay, and on the other hand, like, it does. I would be much more shocked if it was made in America because someone here would have been like, "Dude, that's not okay."
Here's the thing: it's a kid's game. Like that's what you forget about when you first see that mini game. Like this game is made for kids, so they can learn about history.
Yeah.
One, like, how does that teach them anything about history? Like,
well, it teaches them something about today.
It does.
About that's not gone. It's still here.
Yeah.
The fact that you would even have to ever have to see that is evidence that no one owns human beings anymore, but that stigma's still there. And
I mean, do we even know that? I mean, human trafficking
is still a thing for sure.
Yeah.
But like the peculiar institution, as they call it, is gone. But then now you've got people trying to repeal the 14th Amendment. So it's a symptom, I would say.
Here's what really bothers me is that all the press that this game has got. And look, there are pockets.
And what was Playing History 1?
Yeah, I don't even want to know.
Were you like handing out smallpox blankets?
Yeah.
What was
malaria popsicles? I don't know. I don't know how it could get much worse than that. But
Yeah.
I mean, you got to realize that there are pockets of people who may think that isn't a big deal, as you said. Not even just in Europe or around the world. Like down south in America, there's pockets of people who probably just went and gave those people like money and paid for that game because they saw it and were like, oh. So there's a little bit of guilt that comes for me personally of even running this in the show, but I also feel like you just can't dodge important social issues, and things like this need to be brought out. And look, if a few of our users go to that studio's Twitter account and says a few choice words to those guys, I got no problem with that. I'm not going to tell you to do it, but sometimes you got to bring stuff like this out into the light so that people get the message, because this guy didn't get the message. Like, he fired back and was like very angry and talking about how people have stopped like thinking for themselves, and like everyone's just falling in line and no one thinks about anything anymore before they, and basically saying like, you guys are all making knee-jerk reactions about this and you're not thinking about it. Like saying, well, this could be a valuable learning tool. Like,
look, a large part of history is context, and
exactly.
And the fact that whoever made that, I don't want to learn history from them.
Yeah, I don't either. And I don't want my kids learning history from that person. I don't want anyone learning anything from that person. So,
not thinking beforehand, like, I don't think you're in the... that's pretty funny, coming from someone who made Slave Tetris.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to tell you guys to do it, but, you know, I'm sure they have a Twitter handle.
We can't stop you.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not going to hold you back.
It's a free country.
Yeah. Anyway, well,
internet.
I think we're going to wrap up GameFace at this point. Actually, let's see if we can find maybe a question or two from you guys from the last couple topics that we've covered on the show. Here, Matt, maybe you can look and see if there's any good questions while I wrap up the show. Of course, we have the 20-second delay, so we'll try to give you guys a little bit of time before we wrap things up. But couple updates. Game evals are going to start rolling through the site very quickly. In fact, as soon as I get home from this, our Mad Max game eval is waiting to go up. That'll be going up soon. Tomorrow, our Metal Gear Solid 5 game eval should be going up. Day after that, Super Mario Maker will be going up. Day after that, until dawn, we've got our Forza game eval that's being worked on right now by a freelancer that will be up definitely before the game comes out on Tuesday. We have somebody working on Disgaea 5 right now. So the game evals are going to start rolling out hardcore on Sifted. So we hope you guys have been enjoying them so far. You're going to be getting a deluge of them coming up in the very near future. I'm hoping we should be able to announce a new show within the next week. Been having problems with the guys who are creating our graphics for the show. They've been taking forever. I think we're just little guys on their palette, and they work with a lot of the big networks, and so I think we're getting shoved aside a little bit here and there. Matt, any questions from viewers?
Ian Esquire wants to know if there might be a future option to gift a Sifted subscription to a friend.
Yep, that was actually supposed to be there at launch. It was also supposed to be part of the original, like, share, the earn part of earning premium. Like, when you click on that little gold star that says earn, there's supposed to be an option there for gift certificates. Because originally Sifted was supposed to, believe it or not, was supposed to have launched a year ago. Like, the web developer had told us that it would be done a year ago. And here we are a year later, and it's still not done. And part of that plan was to have gift certificate options for people who wanted to get subscriptions for Christmas. And so that's been a part of the plan from the very beginning. And so, yes, it will be an option in the very near future.
Grenade Artist. Hey, Benson. Have you guys finished MGS? Any thoughts, if so?
Well, I mean, we shared our thoughts last week.
Yeah.
Maybe the better question is, have our thoughts changed on the game since last week? Because we talked about that game for like an hour last week.
Yeah. Well,
has your opinion changed at all?
Not really. I mean, I'm still. I think I'm. What am I? I'm on like mission like 16. I mean, It's a big game. There's a lot to do.
It is huge. Yeah.
My main
You're
thing,
not even like halfway
not
there.
not even close. But at this point, my main thing right now is like mostly I'm still enjoying it, but I am hitting the point where like my development stuff is hitting like the 3rd and 4th tier, and the wait times are really beginning to irritate me. Yeah. And I don't understand why I have to wait in real time like for 48 hours while my final command platform
they want your command platform to finish when you finish the game.
But like,
they're trying to force you to time it out so that they both complete at the same time.
48 hours is more than my total time played right now. I mean, what am I supposed to just have them stand at Mother Base? I don't even want I don't want to leave my PlayStation 4 on that long, and I'm not playing it. That's just like a wasted. That thing was. Who knows how long that thing's gonna last? And like, it's just annoying to me that like it's like. That usually is a mechanic for when you're trying to get real money out of people to speed those time things up in like a free-to-play game, but you can't do that in Metal Gear Solid 5, so why is that mechanic in there to that degree? I'll wait 18 minutes for something to upgrade, but I don't wait an hour 45.
Yeah, I'm writing the game eval for it right now, and I have finished the game. And I guess one thing I would say, just in general about it, is that there are some really low lows in the game, but they're always offset by really high highs. So there are some parts of this game, and literally there is one part of this game that is one of the most annoying things I have ever encountered in the history of video games. And I'm not even exaggerating or using hyperbole or being facetious. I'm literally telling you there is something in this video game that is one of the dumbest and most annoying things I have ever experienced in the medium. Ever.
And some pot F2 here says...
they're always offset by something that's so cool and surprising that they put in the game that you're just like, oh, wow. Like, they thought of that, but they didn't realize this was stupid. Like, it's a very odd game, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, and also pot F2 says 48 hours. Do you mean 48 minutes? No, I mean 48 hours. The final command platform upgrade takes 48 hours, and it doesn't count down when the game's off. It has to be on. It's crazy.
I mean, that's the way all the platforms work. And as they go, like, it's just like any RPG. Like, you have to get more to go up a level. And it's that way for, like, pretty much everything in the game. And when you're building Mother Base, like, at first, every hour or two, you can upgrade Mother Base. But eventually, it's like, okay, now you need to wait 4 hours before the next upgrade. Now you need to wait 48 hours until the next upgrade.
And the forward operating bases take even longer.
Yeah, and some of it I just think that, it's not really intended for most people to upgrade fully before the end of the game. It's for people who become obsessed with the game and want to have something to strive for while they just keep playing the same repetitive missions over and over again.
Yeah, so. I would be less irritated by it if it counted down when the game was off.
Yeah.
Like if I had to wait 48 hours real time, if I could sleep while I was doing it, that would be different. But the fact that it expects me to have the game on that long is just ridiculous.
I guarantee that anybody watching this, when you get to that place I was talking about, you will be like, Ah, that's what Shane was talking about.
Well, and you haven't finished it yet.
I have finished it.
You have finished it. So, okay, and so the follow-up there is, without spoilers, did you like the ending?
I really didn't like the story at all. Like, I thought the story was just awful. And also, the big reveal explanation of what's going on is just completely idiotic. It is, in my opinion, hands down the worst Metal Gear story ever.
Really?
Like, other ones, the stories were dumb, but they were so convoluted that I felt like I didn't know what was going on at certain points. And so, like, as not somebody who was obsessed with the series, I always assumed that, like, there was something cool going on that I just didn't get. You know what I'm saying? But with this story, it is so... It's all cut and dry. There's no mystery with it. So it really is just incredibly dumb, I guess is the best way to put it.
And do you think the Deus Ex pre-order tiers will unlock regardless of the number of pre-orders for publicity's sake? That's from Tan Indigo.
Yeah, because they can totally
Indigo.
They can totally hide that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we'll never know.
No one's ever going to know, right?
Yeah.
So and you don't want to be like, oh, you didn't pre-order enough, we're going to have to take that away from you. Like, that does not PR. It doesn't work that way.
I would say, yes, they will still unlock because I'm guessing all of those things are already being manufactured. And so, at this point, there's really no going back. I mean, it is still 4 or 5 months away. So,
yeah.
Maybe they're just going now into production, so maybe they look... Here's the thing. Like, anytime you do a poll or you ask people to vote for something, generally all you need is the first 5,000. So if you ever run a poll, you will know the results of that poll when the first 5,000 people vote. And so when you're doing pre-orders or you're buying, you're basically voting with your money. And so they'll know, like, they probably already know from the first 2 days whether it's going to be a success or not. And so... there might be a slight chance that they actually wouldn't go through with it, but I'm betting they do. Yeah.
All right.
Is that it?
Only one more. Dogface Pig asked, how do you feel towards sites that give reviews over games they don't 100%? I feel if you don't 100% a game, you don't see everything that's in the game, thus reviewing only part of the actual game.
I think I would disagree with him on that one.
Yeah, I think finish the game.
Finish the game.
100%.
100%. I mean, that means you're...
I reviewed a lot of Assassin's Creed games,
yeah,
and that
I mean,
would have taken
you really
a long
want someone
time.
to chase down every feather in Assassin's Creed before they review it? I think if you did that...
You would have no Crackdown reviews.
Yeah.
Still, if that happened.
You would have, one, you would never get reviews on time, but two, I think every game would get a god-awful review score. Because, look, most people don't want to chase down every little doodad and gadget in a game.
Like, how do you 100% in Madden? Like, do you have to finish franchise mode?
I mean, you finish franchise for review anyway. You have to. At least 2 seasons, because you have to see how it rolled. The season stats roll over into the next one and everything. So, yeah, I no disrespect. I know you're one of our big fans who watch the stream every week, so I got a ton of respect for you. But I respectfully disagree with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if you can 100% it, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you have all the time to burn, if you get the game like 2 months before it comes out and you have that much time to do it, sure.
Yeah, I have 100% of games I've reviewed, but it's certainly not. My criterion is finish it.
Yeah, and I would never require that of the guys who are writing game evals for Sifted. I'll never say that you have to 100% a game. I just won't, because they wouldn't review games for Sifted anymore. They'd be like, dude, like, I'm making like...
Yeah, at a certain point, the pay per hour
10 cents an hour. You'd have to pay people like $20,000 to review one game. So, yeah, for myriad reasons, it's just not quite feasible. And in all honesty, I don't think reviews that were taking into account like tedious collecting, which is what most people consider it, would be good for the end user. I don't think people want game evaluations that.
And I can't think of a game that I've 100%ed where my opinion of it really changed dramatically.
After I tracked down all the crap after I finished, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, all right, that's going to do it for this week's GameFace. Like I said, look out for all those game evals coming. Look out for the new show announcement. I know I've been saying that for forever, but it really should be coming very, very soon. So, thanks for watching the stream to everybody who may have stayed up in Europe tonight, and for everyone around the globe. We really appreciate it. We'll see you here next week. GameFace is up and out.